while it might be mid-September, that doesn't mean we can't get any seeds on. So last week, obviously, I dug out the compost heap, and this is one of the freshly composted beds. I don't dig it at all, it just all gets laid on the top. So what I'm putting in today, I'm putting in some more spinach. So I did sow some seeds inside, but I want to put a couple outside as well, and then they'll go under cloches for the winter, but they will grow from now up until the really cold weather, and then they'll sit there and I can harvest them throughout the winter, and then next spring as well, as soon as that warm weather arrives, I'll get tons and tons of fresh foliage that I can pick. So this has been covered in compost. I haven't stamped it down or anything, you really don't want to do that, but what I do is I take a board and I do just firm it down a little bit before I sow those seeds, because otherwise you'll put the seeds in and as soon as you water it, because the soil is so loose, the seeds will disappear into the soil. So you do want to firm it down a little bit. Then I'll just drill a few rows. I'm going to do them long ways, and this is going to be probably all spinach up to about here, and then this end maybe just a third section I'm going to put in some chard. Well, Sard just rescued this little collared dove from the cat. It's quite badly damaged. It's lost its tail feathers and it's been heavily plucked on the back there, as you can see. The actual damage to its skin is minimal. Obviously, it's torn skin. There's only a couple of deeper scratches. The problem is, obviously, with wild birds, they normally die of shock. So all those injuries aren't necessarily fatal at all. I mean, I've had many chickens that have been far worse injured than this little dove, and they've recovered, but wild birds tend to die quite quickly of shock. But you've got to try, right? So I've just brought it in, I've popped it into a little box. We'll see how we go for a couple of hours, and if it survives the night, then it's probably going to make it. And then once it's sort of healed up a bit after a couple of days, it's started to grow the back feathers out, it will probably be fine. It will need its tail feathers to be able to fly properly, but let's just try and get it through the first few hours and we'll see how we do, because even though it's a wild bird, you've got to give everything a little chance. There is our male guinea. He is being really... There's one of the females. Just a little update on the guineas really, and kind of keeping them with chickens is working really well. They don't escape, and amazingly, they don't make a ton of noise. Now, they are not fully grown adults. We've not got to the laying stage yet, so they're not fully mature. But I'm wondering whether rearing them with chickens and keeping them in a chicken run, and also just clipping their wings as well. So one wing is clipped just so they can't fly up onto fences and things. But I'm wondering whether doing that way, rearing them up as keets with chicks, not only kind of reduces their need to fly off, but also their sound, because these guys really aren't very noisy. And that was the main reason I didn't get them before, because they were so noisy, I heard. Don't get me wrong, they do go crazy if something untoward happens, if a large bird flies overhead or something like that, something spooks them, they do go crazy. Look at this hen, she's eyeing me up. But in general, quite quiet. I also wonder whether it's, obviously I've got one male and two females, so I've got a nice little trio. But we'll see as it goes on. Obviously I'm fairly new to guinea fowl keeping, but so far, hello, it's working out really well. Well, I need to admit defeat on these tomatoes. I did get some tomatoes outside this year. I got a couple of varieties that I popped in. This lovely little patio yellow, and then these red, which I think they're just an Alicante. They didn't do tremendously well, but it seemed that tomatoes in general didn't do that great this year. What I did do is I did interplant them with some parsley, and the parsley plants, I can see 5. Yeah, they've actually done all right. So we've got 1, 2, 3, there's another one through there, 5. And parsley are actually perennial. So obviously I've planted them in one of these beds in amongst the tomatoes. Let's get out of the way so you don't see my shadow. And obviously it will be dug up again and mulched down and resown next year. So the parsley plants will need to come up, but it's just nice to see that the parsley plants are kind of got a little bit of root in the earth, and they are doing well. And then I'll probably just lift them and keep them in pots for the foreseeable future. But the tomatoes, I'm not pulling them out yet because, as you can see, there are still some green tomatoes. They've stopped flowering, although as I say that, I've just noticed there are some flowers. But yeah, it's not been a bumper harvest this year, but we just try again with gardening, don't we? So next year, more tomatoes, and we'll see how we do. Here are our little surprise chicks with my favourite. Look at her, that little pale buff girl at the front. Such a pretty little thing. So the surprise chicks are all doing really, really well. I did take some of your advice because they were making such a mess. So just along here, I just used a couple of cable ties, and this is only cardboard so that I can just remove it, just to stop all the dirt getting kicked out, because this was becoming really, really messy and wet and gross. But they're doing really, really well. Hello. We've got a lot of this colour, of this black with the mottling. We've got a couple of these buff ones, as I said before. They will soon be graduating from this coop and going into the grower shed, and then I will be splitting out the quail and putting my mature girl quail that lay eggs. I'll be putting them down here, and I'll be putting my younger quail at the top. And that's simply so that the girls that are still laying eggs are still valuable, but they won't be as fertile. So I want the egg laying girls that are younger up the top, so I can know that they're the eggs that I incubate, and the girls in this section I won't. But for now, we've still got these little surprise chicks down here. Well, some of the little seedlings for the winter garden are coming on really well. Now, as you can see, we still have a big whitefly issue. Let me go like this. Horrible, isn't it? I can't wait till the cold weather comes and starts to kill some of that off. And obviously these are all going to be outside, so those whitefly will get killed off, and I'm spraying them every day to try and keep the whitefly numbers down. But we've got a couple of kale varieties. So we've got some kale this side and some kale this side. We've got some chard, and we've got some broccoli. Now obviously you'll notice there's quite a few empty holes, and they just didn't germinate. But this is kind of for my personal winter garden, so I'm not too bothered that not everything germinated. And also they were older seeds as well that I just had seed packets lying around, and I just wanted to get rid of these packets. So I'm quite happy that actually, you know, in all I've got about 6 or 7 kale plants and three things of kale, of chard, which will be perfectly fine for me through the winter. I've also got my cabbages. So the cabbages, you can see this one did really, really well. So this is January, it's January King, that came out really, really well. And you can see this other one, I can't remember the name, came out really well. Caserta, practically empty apart from this one little thing here. Now I don't know whether that's going to develop into a cabbage plant or not, but not so great. But they have got we've probably got another month of warmth here, so they can get big enough, I hope, to be small plants. Now these won't be fully blown cabbages, so they may not survive the winter cold, which means they will need cloching along with these. These will all also need cloching, but it just means that I will have something in those winter beds. So on those days where I get a little bit of warmth, a little bit of sunshine, they will continue to grow and give me harvests, even if it's not through the winter, early next spring. Here are the 2 Reeves chicks, and it's quite clear now that we have a boy and a girl. So Evie1 is the one at the front of the camera there on the left, now walking back to the right, and you can clearly see Evie1 has grown into a boy and is actually growing some very, very nice male plumage. He won't actually molt into his full adult plumage until next year, so this is just kind of his juvenile male plumage, and then next year he'll molt out properly and get the mega long tail. Evie2, although she's a bit young, she is starting to get those small little white feathers around her tail, and that's a sign of the hen. You don't get that with the boy, so we can be fairly confident that she is a hen. Now she's obviously going to go in with Adam outside, but she's still a bit young. I don't want Adam attacking her because he doesn't realise that she's a hen and just thinks she's a random intruder. So Reeves can be aggressive, and so we don't want to take the risk. So we're going to wait till she's a bit older, she's molted out into a bit more adult hen plumage before we introduce her. In the meantime, we're going to be building another coop as well for Evie1, because obviously he needs to go in a separate coop because he certainly will get killed by Adam, because he will be, obviously he'd be an incoming male into Adam's current territory. So he will have to have a separate coop. And then when they have babies, so when Evie2 and Adam have babies, we will keep one of the hens and give it to this guy, and then we'll have 2 pairs of unrelated birds that we can sell babies. But we finally do know the sexes, so we have a boy and a girl.